quick plug, if you enjoy the content I make on my channel and want to support me, I have a Patreon where you can make voluntary contributions to help me make videos, make money off my art. One of the new rewards I just made is these holographic stickers. Look! Do you see the shimmer? I have full-length raw video content for $5, I have a postcard club for $10, and a lot more. Go check me out on Patreon if you feel like supporting me. I'm in like desperate need of a haircut. I look like a beetle. Don't be shocked if I come into the next video bald. So much. Real talk. I hate this painting that I made. But here's the thing, I've been doing a lot of beginner tutorials and that's what a lot of people are looking for on this channel, and I've been realizing that I haven't made anything that I love recently. And I was like, why do I not like anything that I'm making? It's because I'm not putting my full time and effort into the paintings I'm doing right now because they're beginner, I'm simplifying them, I'm making them short and easy to digest, but then therefore being like doing things far under the skill level that I can do. So I'm feeling a little bit dissatisfied. Does not mean beginner paintings are bad paintings, that doesn't mean that at all. It just means that I'm a little tired of them. I think I need to step up my painting level, so you might be seeing some more advanced intermediate style paintings on the channel in the near future. I almost didn't post it, but I'm like, this is not a bad painting. This is a totally fine tutorial. The puffy cloud techniques, especially this up here that I go over in this tutorial, are really awesome, and I really like this style of painting clouds where you're layering highlights on top of the different shadow colors. I am posting it, but I know it's not my best work, but it's still here. It's on a canvas panel. This is by Art Alternatives. It's an 11 by 14. I use some fairly cheap Artist Loft acrylic paint, an array of paintbrushes, some water, a paper towel, a palette. So getting into our tutorial, we have our three most important colors here: titanium white, ultramarine blue, and magenta. You can make this whole painting happen with just these three colors, but I add on a yellow, a slightly different red, and a slightly different blue just so I can have a little more control. So right here I'm mixing up a dark blue that kind of has little hints of magenta in it. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna create this really pretty gradient using this big, flat, wide brush. We're gonna take the dark blue, apply it to the very top of our painting, get a nice little layer going there, and then slowly we're gonna shift the color to a lighter blue so we can get this pretty little like ombre gradient effect. So here we're taking our white, a little bit of extra blue, we're mixing that in with our dark blue, and then we're quickly applying that to our painting here just below, doing it again, adding a little more white each time, trying to quickly get it on there so we can blend those colors together. But if the paint on your canvas has already dried, don't worry about it too much. That's why we're doing these subtle color shifts, so even if you're not able to get that blend, you're able to have a look that looks blended because the colors are just subtly shifting. So here I just wanted to add another layer because I thought the first layer wasn't looking clean enough on its own, and I wanted to darken the top part of the sky just a little bit more. So I'm doing the same exact thing as I did before, making sure that that first layer is nice and dry before I do the second layer. And then taking blue and slowly adding a little more white to it and getting a little bit lighter as we move down until I'm totally happy and satisfied with how this background looks. And this is where we're starting. So this magenta color is one of my favorite colors to paint with, and I feel like it's not often in the arsenal of new artists, but if you're gonna be painting anything pink, having magenta on hand rather than just red is amazing. So what we're doing here is we're outlining the top cloud with magenta and just a tiny little bit of white added on there, and we're sketching out where the cloud is going to be. This can be loose, this doesn't have to be super clean. You can see I'm just kind of using some quick brushy motions. This magenta color is a little bit darker because I want this to be our base color. I'm not worrying about the details too much. You can see I'm using a pretty big brush for this and kind of just like brushing it around and see what happens, because I don't need the details to be perfect. I want it to be more of a looser, rougher interpretation of a cloud. Then we're doing the bottom cloud. We have two main clouds happening here, and this is a lighter pink color, but it's not going to be too light because this is still going to be the shadow color for this pink cloud. These are going to be fairly dark. They're not super dark, but what we want to do is be able to add highlights on top of these clouds to get the puffy effect. And again here I'm just kind of sketching this out. I'm not worried about it being perfect. And I'm also here doing something that I don't love how it ended up. I think I would probably just paint that whole bottom blue part if I would have redone this painting again, but I'm leaving these little windows of the sky open so it looks like the clouds are kind of parting in those areas so that I can just have some of that light coming through, but I end up not loving that. So if you want to just cover that whole part up, go for it. But I created these little windows of light there so that the sky can show through. Now I'm taking a nice thin liner brush while I'm waiting for those to dry, and I want to draw on tiny little moon. I have a nice small brush to make this happen. I'm just using pure titanium white, making it look nice and clean. And then I'm going to start dotting on the little stars. I'm using the smallest brush I have available for me to do this, because the smaller my stars, the more realistic I feel like they look. So you can also, if you don't have a really tiny brush, use the tip of a mechanical pencil, dip it into titanium white paint, and then just tap it on wherever you feel like a star should be. I want to make sure that I'm not keeping them too evenly spaced, but I'm also covering every area that needs to be covered. Stars, I feel like, take a long time to figure out how to make them look good, so be patient with yourself. I'm also making sure I add some in those little windows there that I left open from that cloud. Cleaning up my palette with a little scraper knife makes it really easy. And now I want to add the highlights to our cloud, so I'm putting more magenta on there, taking white, taking magenta, and mixing up a slightly lighter color than the color we had for the top cloud. Just has a little more white in it than the main color we had for that cloud. And I'm taking a little bit of a smaller flat brush, and I'm sketching on these tiny little puffs. I gotta sneeze, hold up. I'm kind of keeping in mind that I have an imaginary light source from the bottom right part of our painting, so the highlights are going to end up on the edge of the cloud that, it's so hard to explain highlights. The bottom right of the cloud as well, if that makes sense. So if my light is coming from the bottom right, I want the bottom right of the cloud to be hit with light from that area. I hope that makes sense. Highlights are hard. Highlights take time to figure out, but I'm kind of focusing on that bottom right part of the cloud, anywhere where I feel like there's an edge, where there's a little bit of a puff, and that's where I'm adding my highlights. You can see too that this highlight color is really subtle. It's not that different from the main color we have for the cloud as it dries. We're just gonna add more highlights on top to get this like blended puffy effect. I'm also taking a little bit of that color and I'm putting it on the bottom cloud. I just wanted to shadow that part of the cloud a little bit more. Just a little. Then I'm taking magenta and white once again and getting a little bit of a smaller brush this time that has a nice rounded top because I want to get some little rounded puff effects going. Added a little more white than the last one and adding some more highlights on top, getting some of those little tiny puffs going on there using that little brush in motion. And on top of the first layer of highlights, adding another layer to slowly start to define them a little bit more. Again, I'm keeping to that bottom right part of the cloud as I'm working here, and I'm not covering as much as I did with the first layer of highlights because I want to make sure you can still see that first layer of highlights. It's gonna layer up in smaller and smaller amounts with each lighter color that we go to so that you can see that the color is just subtly shifting from dark to light. Grabbing a little bit of a smaller brush once again, adding more white to our paint. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. Taking that light color and a little bit more sparingly this time on the bottom right part of the cloud. Slowly taking my time. And then I'm taking a slightly bigger brush and then I'm adding puffs to the bottom cloud as well because this highlight color also works for this bottom cloud, which is going to be a lot lighter than the top cloud. If you don't want those little windowed sky areas, I don't love how mine turned out because they're a little too uniform. I don't like the position of them. I don't like how the highlights look near them. I don't like it. Cover them up with just some pink paint, you're fine. Add a little more white to my pink. Taking that filbert brush again with that rounded top, and I'm tapping on some more puffs, outlining some of the areas I think the light might be hitting. Really loose, really quick. You can see I'm not being very ginger about these paint strokes. I'm kind of slapping them on there. I'm not super worried about making everything perfect. I just kind of want to get a feel for how fluffy this cloud is going to be. And then a smaller brush again with a much lighter pink, defining the puffs, keeping my brush strokes loose. I'm adding some highlights to the areas where the windows would be, like there's light coming through, they're gonna be a little more highlighted. Again, you don't have to do it because it turned out kind of ugly, so like, do whatever you want. And then I'm going for the brightest highlight color here. It's almost white. It does have pink in it, magenta obviously, but I'm just outlining the most detailed areas. Here I'm filling in my little window areas with a slightly lighter blue because I cover them up a little bit. I thought this was going to make them look better, but it didn't. And at the very end of this, you'll see me try and scrub it out with like a little paper towel because I really didn't like it. But you know, it is what it is. Not every painting is going to be a masterpiece. I was frustrated at the time, but now I'm just like, you know, it's okay that it didn't turn out perfect. Not every painting can, but I really like, if you chopped off that bottom third of the painting, I really love this painting. So that's our finished pink cloud. So that was our tutorial. If you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to check out my Patreon if you feel like supporting this channel. Don't be too hard on yourself about paintings that you feel aren't masterpieces, about paintings that you know that you can do better on. It don't matter. It's okay to not make a masterpiece every time. A reminder to myself, I need to chill out. I'll see you in the next video.